O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.
I guess I grew up on an older road.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 162 of the Hunting Collective. I am Benjamin Patrick O'Brien, the first. Philip T. Engineer. What's your dad's name, Philip? Is it also Philip?
No, it is Troy.
Troy the engineer.
Troy Taylor.
Is he also an engineer?
No, he's not.
What's he do for a living?
He helps do security for banks. He's not like a security guard, but he sits in an office and watches cameras and organizes. I honestly don't really know. I've asked him about 3 or 4 times. Every time he explains it, I get more confused. So
Phil's dad is in the CIA.
I mean, honestly, that's probably it. That's why I've never gotten a straight answer.
Yeah, that seems like a cover for something big time. Well, we got a lot to get to today, so we won't rush. We won't dawdle on family issues, Phil's misunderstanding of his father's life, but we have a lot to announce. First, I talked to our friend. You remember the White Claw? You can't judge a White Claw man. Remember that?
Of course, yeah,
Phil?
Lovely.
Everybody did. A lot of people wrote in. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people went and sought out Kayla Ray and her music. I spoke to her via the Instagram DMs, and she's very excited about working with us on a song for THC. And so now we just got to get creative, Phil.
Well,
so
here's the thing, Ben. You've gotten so many poems over the last couple of years that are honestly better than anything either of us could write. So what I'm thinking is, you love a good contest. How about we get a contest for the THC theme song? Lyrics for the theme song, and then Kayla Ray will sing them.
Ooh, that's a good idea, Phil.
And she would also write the music, obviously, as well.
You have confidence that the listenership can turn this in, because this would last forever, and it'll probably. We'd have to put it on iTunes, and it probably would rise quickly in the charts, and I probably would be too big for the show and then leave. But if you trust the listeners, Phil, because you often don't trust the listeners, but if you trust them, I'll go with you.
Oh, I trust them to write a stupid poem that makes a joke about like Barry Gilbert and Eric Hall or something. Like that's what I trust them to do.
Perfect. Limited trust. It's not full trust, but creative. In this case, creative trust exists between you and the listenership. Okay. Well, give me some time to figure out the ins and outs of this here contest. But everybody out there, start thinking of your lyrics for the new THC theme song, sung by none other than Kayla Ray. A lovely voice. Apparently knows a little bit about this show and is a fan of its many machinations. So we'll move on. Last week's show, Phil, did you get to listen to the interview with Miles Nolte last week, or the conversation with Miles Nolte about media and the division and polarization and what to do next?
I did.
Did you get to listen to that?
I did. Yep.
I always want to go to you first because I have, as you might imagine, reams of of reaction, emails, DMs. I was told I need to log back onto Instagram, and I did, and read some messages, and then read some reviews of the podcast that were not so nice. And I wanted to just pick your brain first before I get into what I want to say. But I want to pick your brain into what you thought about last week and what you think about,
Well, here's the funny thing. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add because I think Miles covered. I mean, it's weird because the more I get to know Miles and spend time with him, the more I realize we're on the same page about like 99% of things. So it was funny because we recorded the intro to last week's episode before I heard your guys' conversation. And it was funny that I just heard Miles kind of say exactly what I said in the intro. And I mean that's pretty much it. It's like I just don't. It's hard not to be pessimistic about the whole thing. It's tough. With
True.
the kind of like market we have in this country that drives everything, like sensationalism speaks a lot louder than reason, I suppose. So yeah.
It does, and it'll continue to do so. I figure we spend a little bit of time before we get into today's topic, and it's a good one, talking about the reaction specifically to this podcast. Now, we'll give you a minute. If you didn't listen to 161, go ahead, and we'll give you a minute to go back and listen. And we're back. Thanks for taking that time to listen to Miles Nolte. It's Nolte, not Nolte. Nolte.
That's right.
And I go through that topic, and Phil and I rip it up a little bit about it too. But of all of the reaction, the thing that I took out of it is, because this is, it's not a small sample size. Plenty of people reacted to last week's podcast. It lined out one thing for me. I love you guys. And when I say you guys and gals, I mean like the real listeners of THC, not the people that only listen every once in a while, but the people that follow along with us, that are entrenched in this show and for whatever reason. Because the THC email inbox, thc@themedia.com, for me is an island of sanity in a sea of insanity. If I look at like the thoughtfulness, the constructive nature of the emails that I got on this subject, plenty of people saying that they disagree with my political choice and who I voted for, but respected my right to make that choice and wanted to kind of talk me into their points of view, several points of view. All of that stuff felt like it was people that respected each other, people that were seeking mutual respect, and so I'd say thank you for that. I can't say that about what's outside of the THC email inbox, but I definitely can say that with what's in it. You remember Greg Morse, Phil, our buddy Greg?
Yeah.
Hilarious fella.
Yes.
Did a little prank calling earlier last year. He wrote me an email that said, hey, Ben, I was really into cinnamon rolls the last couple months. My wife and I would bake some when we had the time, but recently I have been into grapefruits. They say grapefruits have a lot of positive qualities like preventing diabetes, but I haven't looked into that research. Figured you needed a break from all the other shit you've been reading in your inbox after last episode. Your friend, Greg Morris. So in honor of Greg, I'd like to, Phil, for you to rank grapefruits and cinnamon buns in descending order. What do you...
Here's the thing about grapefruit.
It's a battle that matters.
I love the taste of grapefruit, but man, they are bitter as hell. That's why you always see, you eat like half a grapefruit with a spoon with some like sugar sprinkled on top. I think that's a tasty snack. I like my fruit to be able to be enjoyed on its own though. And for me, grapefruit is not enjoyable on its own. It needs a little help. But I'm a fan. Cinnamon rolls, besides being incredibly unhealthy, are just one of the greatest tasting things on this planet.
Absolutely.
Shout out to whoever invented the cinnamon roll. You're a legend.
Some people might say that the fact that there's a grapefruit spoon is a detraction from the grapefruit. I say no. I say it for people want to eat grapefruit so much that they create a specific tool to do so. That little kind of serrated edge on that little spoon means that there's some higher cultural value with the grapefruit. And I feel like too many people are polarized on grapefruits. Cinnamon buns is something we can all get behind, but grapefruits have long been in our culture subject of debate. And so I'd like to end that debate right now by saying grapefruits over cinnamon rolls or cinnamon buns, whatever you want to call them, because there's no cinnamon bun spoon that I'm aware of. And that's my final argument.
Your line
I'll hear
of
nothing
reasoning
more. I'll hear nothing more of it.
Okay.
I'm not open to criticism. I'm not open to a conversation. And on this point, there is no nuance. The grapefruit is the champion. But anyway, getting back to the last week, every single email that we got in that email inbox, including that one from Greg, was constructive. Can't say that as much for some social media spots. I checked iTunes. We had a couple of 1-star reviews, Phil. I know this hurts you, and I know this. It's early in the week. This might ruin your week, but I'm gonna just kind of read a little bit of what was there, if it's okay.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Living on golf too, right? Like the fact that I have no respect for somebody who's living on golf too. Like there was another person living on golf, but anyway, living on golf too on iTunes. He said he can't bring himself to support our podcast any further, and that I was weak to vote for Joe Biden and go with the status quo. I was weak. Texas Moose Hunter says he is unsubscribing, deleting the podcast, and he can't support someone who supports Biden and his socialist agenda. That it hurts. Slings and arrows of social media. I mean, it hurts so much. But I would say, Phil, don't you believe that these folks have the right to leave?
Oh, of course.
They can come and go as they please.
Yeah, please. Close the door on your way out.
Yeah. But I would say, if I haven't made this clear over the last 3 years of doing this podcast, I would do it now. If you can't stand to listen to someone that has a different ideology, political affiliation, religion, whatever, something that differs from your own, it's going to be a tough road here at THC. I promise. But what I would say is a solution for living on golf too in Texas Moose Hunter is you can hate listen. Why wouldn't you hate listen, Phil? I would like to promote this podcast as a hate listening podcast. We would love, if you hate us, we want you to listen. I mean, I can often compare myself as the Howard Stern of hunting. Phil, Phil agrees, right, Phil? No?
Yeah, just as influential.
Yeah, way shorter. Not as curly hair, but everything else similar. My wife is blonde. But anyway, everybody knows that you should love your enemies and you should listen to your enemies' podcasts because this podcast will bring out the best in you. So don't simply walk away from this show.
Oh, Ben, I just want to say this argument about hate listening holds as much water as your grapefruit argument, which is to say not a lot of water.
Which means I'll see no. Which means I'm right on both.
Can I just want to say that I hate follow people, like a couple of people on Twitter and Instagram, and no, like it does feel good ephemerally. I think it's unhealthy. So I'm just going to offer a differing opinion that says that, if you don't want to listen to the show anymore, then please don't.
Please listen to it if you don't.
I would also like to say, just have a Phil is sincere moment. very, very quickly. Before the election, you and I had a conversation or two off mic, of brief conversations about politics and who we were planning on voting for.
Yep.
And the first time we had that conversation, you told me you were planning on voting for Trump. And I'm not going to lie, it was incredibly disheartening. At the same time, though, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong. You probably saw my reaction and that it wasn't, it was not positive. But I don't think. But then I proceeded to just ask you why, and I told you reasons why I voted the way that I was going to vote. You told me reasons why, and we had an incredibly civil conversation. And at no point did I ever think about, not that I have a choice, I guess, but at no point was I I don't think I can be a part of THC anymore. I don't think I can work with Ben anymore. It was, we had a difference of opinion and we talked it out. And I thought that was a good conversation, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point in my mind. The reason why I'm not scared of telling people who I voted for is because the whole point is so people can talk about it, talk about why, and understand each other. And that's where this conversation on media and division comes in. Is just understanding. You can't understand someone if you don't want to listen to them. And the media plays a huge part in dividing us and spinning us into arguments that are counterproductive and feelings that are counterproductive. So anyway, that's why I don't mind saying who I voted for. It might hurt me. I might lose some people from the show. I might get in trouble at work. Who knows? I don't know what me saying here's who I voted for and here's what's my line of thinking. I don't know what that's going to do for my life, but I don't really care. As I've often said, my grandfather, bless his heart, I got a picture of him right here in my office. Always said, at the dinner table, we don't talk about sex, religion, or politics. And I don't know, maybe because he pushed that, I'm like, that's the interesting stuff, man. That's where we get to learn about each other. So let's not leave that off the table.
Yeah, I only talk about sex and religion at the dinner table.
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't allow anything else, and I sometimes I combine them.
Yeah. Oh, Phil.
Sex and religion, not sex, religion. They have to be together.
Perfect. Well, that's why you're here. That's why you're our special boy.
Thank you.
So most people with nothing to lose, they don't have to be scared to say who they voted for or what they believe. But trust me, in the place we are in our culture, everybody has a little something to lose. I have a very good friend of mine who lost communication with his daughter over politics and ideologies, which seems insane to me. But that's how far we've come. Any final statements, Phil, on that? We'll leave that aside. Certainly, it's one of the through lines of this here show, so we'll keep after it. But I felt like there was, with the new president coming on and all that we've talked about, it's nice to have that conversation. And I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the emails that we've received. Boy, it feels real good to retreat to the old THC inbox. And so don't let me down out there. Don't leave me hanging. I got to have something to read that I really enjoy. So all you listeners out there, keep firing them babies in. Switching gears. Our interview on the show today is my good friend and the editor of RECOIL magazine, he's now a recurring guest, second time on the show, is Iain Harrison. He's from Great Britain, defected, as you might say, to the United States after the gun ban over there decades ago. I follow him, the Dunblane Massacre, and won a reality show on History Channel called Top Shot, and got himself into the shooting industry for good, the hunting and shooting and outdoors industry for good. His story is awesome. If you want to go listen to that one, it's episode 47. Iain Harrison and Ryan Callahan from the Florida SHOT Show back in February of 2019. Hear his entire story and hear his thoughts, because he is a man who is all about freedoms, because some of his freedoms have been taken away. And so the topic of the day is guns, gun rights, Second Amendment, where we stand. Now, Phil, you're about to become a gun owner, so you're going to be thrust into this conversation. You're going to be thrust full head on into the conversation about guns, gun ownership. Are you ready? Are you comfortable being a gun owner?
Yeah, I'm personally comfortable being a gun owner, but just to be completely honest here, especially before I worked for Meat Eater and before I was like exposed to, a lot of differing viewpoints and practical knowledge about guns and hunting. I don't want to say I was anti-gun or like I wasn't in the melt the guns camp, if you want to call that the most extreme. But I'm still incredibly wary about firearms and who should be not like who like the process of obtaining them, who should be allowed to own them. That's something that I'm still thinking about, and I have a lot of reservations about. I'm not a gung ho Second Amendment person. So I personally don't have trepidations about owning a gun. I can handle it safely. I believe and store it safely. But yeah, I'm still very wary.
Yeah, it's good to hear, man, and that's why we love having you on the show for many other reasons. Who's in the background? Is that Kevin or Meatloaf?
That's Kevin.
Himself?
He's taking a bath.
Kevin is taking a bath. He is always looking at
me. He heard me say his name.
Kev. Hey, Kev. Make sure you miss the spot, Kev.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the serious topic of the Second Amendment. It's good, Phil, to hear you say that because I think we need to normalize that position. I realize that.
Sorry, Ben. I'm going to interrupt you again really quickly. Corinne and I had podcast producer Corinne. I don't think she's ever been on this show, but if you've listened to Meat Eater,
she's
heard
been
her there
a few times. It's been a while. We need to have her back on.
We had a very long conversation this weekend about getting people on board, just like non-hunters on board. Mm-hmm. And we kind of not came to a conclusion, but we just kind of, one of the big things that like we kind of landed on was that guns that's like a serious major roadblock in getting people into hunting. Mm-hmm. The conversation around firearms. And it's tough because I feel like people in this industry want to get more hunters. They want more people hunting. But they also, I feel like a lot of people are uncomfortable having that conversation about guns. And if you're unable or uncomfortable having the conversation about firearms and how a lot of this country, including me, has a lot of issues about how, things have been handled in the past and how we should move forward and just stuff like, then you're not going to get more hunters. You're just like, I think that's a huge thing. So, I mean, you have to be willing, both sides have to be willing to have the conversation.
No, I love it, man. I really do. And we've said this before, but there's been a part of the hunting community that I have really abhorred over the last 10 years that I've been a part of it. As the ability for us to kick anybody out and scorn anybody that brings an opinion like you just brought to the table. There's been some notable instances where folks that had followings that we celebrated for being in our space, and maybe they weren't one of us, but they were coming and really enjoying the value set of hunting. As soon as they spoke up against the Second Amendment, or they even hinted that they weren't going to follow the party line, we kick them right out. We tell them that they can't be here. And that is the antithesis of what we're trying to create, which is a welcoming community that says, like, listen, this is what we believe about guns, but we know, just like hunting, guns are a complicated endeavor. And they're not made any easier by the politics and what is a political and cultural lexicon that includes banning things, gun safety, mass shootings, National Rifle Association, includes a lot of strife. So people come into it with a lot of baggage. And that's something we have to understand. We can't just say, like, we're right, and if you want into the hunting community, you have to think this way. That's never going to be a welcoming place. It's not a place I want to be a part of. So we've talked about that on this show before. I do wholeheartedly believe in the Second Amendment. I think I can argue with the best of them, and we'll have some people on that want to probably argue with me about this. Iain is not obviously one of them. But I do think if you and I would sit down over time, I think the best way is to take somebody hunting and teach them about a firearm, but then also just talk about, where the culture is, some of the bad, some of the good. I mean, there's plenty of nuance within this topic. But here's the equation, Phil, as I see it today. There are 8.4 million. Just imagine this: 8.4 million new gun owners last year, 2020, in the United States. 8.4 million. Some of them will go hunting. Many of them bought firearms during COVID to defend themselves and their families. So, for perspective, the population of the entire country of Switzerland is 8.6 million people. So basically, Switzerland is the equivalent of the country of Switzerland, and its entire population is the equivalent of the amount of new gun owners that are in our world right now in this country. That's a sobering idea, man. More than 21 million gun background checks were conducted last year. That's up 60% from 2019. And there were nearly 23 million firearms sold last year. That's pretty crazy, man. That is insane to me. I've been through this. When we're talking to Iain, we talk about this a little bit when I worked at the NRA, and when President Obama got elected the first time for his first term, you see this idea that people got to go scramble and get guns. But if you according to the NSSF, I was looking at an article from them, National Shooting Sports Foundation, 40% of 2020's buyers of guns were women, and the biggest increase of any demographic category was African Americans. They bought guns at a rate of 58% greater than 2019. So there's people like you that are going to buy, I'm going to grab a shotgun so I can go hunt turkeys, or I'm going to, that I think it's not a minority. It's likely a significant part of this number. But most of the people coming in here now own a gun, and they have the responsibility of that. And like I said before, you get thrown into this cultural battle, this political battle of guns. Also, the things we talk about with Iain, there's an ammo shortage going on right now. People buying up ammo. This happens in a cyclic fashion. The central organization, the most polarizing organization in guns, the National Rifle Association, just filed for bankruptcy and reincorporated in Texas. And they spent about half the amount of money lobbying during this last presidential election as they did the time before in 2016. And now you have President Biden's administration preparing gun control legislation, probably as we speak. They're probably jotting away as we speak. So I say all that to say, man, there is a lot going on. Too much to ignore for anybody, especially new gun owners, especially people coming into the fray who haven't done this before. So it's an important topic. I feel like if people want to know where I stand, I feel as strongly about the Second Amendment and my right to defend my family as I do about public lands, access, environment, protecting ecosystems, and habitat for wildlife. They sit on a equal plane for me. And to bring it back to where we started, I have to make that choice when I vote almost every single damn time. Do I choose the environment or do I choose my Second Amendment? It almost seems to ride along those lines, and it sucks, but that's the reality. I guess I say all that to say this is one of the more important conversations we're going to have. Iain Harrison is, if you've never seen RECOIL magazine, you should check it out. They're pretty loud, they're pretty outspoken, and they're not boring, that's for sure. So this is a good conversation with Iain. Anything, Phil, that from all those like 8.4 million new gun owners? Like, when you hear that number, what do you like? Is that unbelievable, or does that seem the entire country of Switzerland just bought new guns?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. But no matter where you fall in on the argument, I mean, I think you laid it out pretty clearly. That's a sobering statistic. Whether or not whether you kind of fall into your camp or my camp, like, it's not surprising because of, the political, we were just in the middle of an election cycle, very heated. Would you say it was heated, Ben? This last election cycle?
It seems like we're still in the heat.
You think so?
Still feel the heat of the flames. No, I mean, yeah. And I think what happens when the pandemic hit and then we have an election in the same year, you have to look at this. Not to
mention all the BLM protests this summer.
That too. You have to look at this and say, what is the root psychological cause of this? Because from if you were to cut this up in Matt Taibbi's whale analogy, you might say if I cut this up and I look at it from a pro-gun standpoint, these people are seeking control. They want to control their lives. They want to be able to defend themselves. When they're scared, they want to have something to turn to that gives them power over that fear, that gives them control over the safety of their family. When they don't trust the police, when they don't trust our leaders. And so no matter where you land on the political scale, guns have a utilitarian use. They have a thing that they can provide you. Whether you like Republicans or you like Democrats, it doesn't matter. And it's clear by the numbers I just read that that's what's going on. And so as we think about this, we should be thinking about, as scary as this may sound to some people, it looks to me like guns are uniting us rather than dividing us, like in terms of what they can do for our lives. Now, you talk about how we politicize them. It's just like masks or anything else. We can politicize just about anything. We've proven that. But the way that people are buying guns, and I think, at least my opinion on why they're buying guns, down to the base reasoning, it's something that anybody can get behind. If they're scared, if somebody knocks your door down, mostly the first thing you do is go and get a gun. A lot of people. And so it's something we'll continue to knock through. But Iain Harrison is right on the front lines of this, thinks about it every single day. Is one of my great friends. So we have some serious conversation and we veer off because I've known him forever and he's one of my favorite humans. So you'll enjoy that, and you will enjoy Iain Harrison from RECOIL.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there because they're great and they're super friendly and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today. Because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
All right, Iain Harrison, welcome to the program. Welcome back to the program. I think this makes you a recurring guest now. This is your second time coming on and talking to me.
Yeah. When was the last time? Was it the SHOT Show last year or the year before?
The year before, I want to say.
Oh, yeah. That's when we were hooked up to IVs, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were hooked up to IVs, and I totally forgot about that.
that was our podcast timer.
Yes, it was.
When the IV bag was empty, that was the end of the podcast.
God, the pre-pandemic days, they were fun, weren't they?
I remember those wistfully.
Oh, dude, I love it, man. I totally forgot about that since you mentioned it. Oh, man.
Boy, did I need to pee after the end of that one.
Oh, my God. I think I might have peed during it. The Venetian housekeepers were not happy.
Leaving IV bags all over the place. At least we picked up our needles.
Yeah, they were like, what happened in here? It smells like urine, and there's needles everywhere. That's why I love you. How are things going? You're down in Arizona these days, but more importantly, I think people are going to say, how are things going with Recoil magazine and Carnivore magazine too, and all the things that you do in your world?
Yeah, we had COVID took a little bit of a ding into our distribution back in May and June, just because we don't really have a presence on newsstands and grocery stores, and they were the only stores open. But since then, we've really bounced back, and it's cool to see the upward trajectory from there.
Tell people, like, Recoil itself. What's the mission of Recoil?
Recoil was founded about 8-9 years ago now, back in the sands of time. And we took a look at what was on the shelves with regards to firearms publications, and we kind of went, we can probably do better. And so it's kind of, the art director that I had back then is still with us now, and he really set the bar with regards to graphic design and the look and feel of the book. And we wanted to touch subjects as well that kind of been ignored to a great extent by traditional gun media. And so, we kind of delve into the cool guy stuff and things that are on the sort of periphery of the firearms world. And so, we just have fun with what we're doing. And I hope the fact that we are still having fun and love going to work every day kind of shows through in some of the content that we produce.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about, one of the things I love about the magazine itself and about the way that it kind of, like, the corner of the gun culture that you guys have kind of carved out for yourselves is that it's really not ashamed, but it's also intelligently put together, and it's thoughtful, and it's very willing to punch you in the face if you need to be. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, as far as the intelligence of the articles go, those are all my colleagues. That's not me at all.
Yeah, that goes without saying. But yes, that's fine. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of things we're going to talk about, but in this show, we're kind of dedicating this 2021 year to new hunters, and really, like, by proxy, new gun owners. As you well know,
we got a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them. 8.4 million new gun owners into the fold this year, which is great to see. And the majority of those people coming in are not traditional gun owners as you would normally think of them, as they're portrayed within the traditional gun media.
Yeah. How do you think that changes? We talk about gun culture in, like, a grand scale a lot of times, but how do you think this influx? I mean, and this happened too. And to be honest, I was working at the NRA when we first met, when Barack Obama got elected the first time, and we saw similar uptick. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just different time in America. And we, like I said, we talk about the gun culture a lot of times in macro terms. But how do you see these 8.4 million people changing what you say and what we all should be saying?
Well, I think really they're a new audience, and it's an audience that we probably haven't addressed all that well in the past. And they have different outlooks, and they're coming to firearms ownership from probably a different perspective than the majority of people. For example, there's something like 60% of people who bought new guns, or new gun owners that joined the ranks in 2020 were either women or came from the black and brown communities. So people of color are now seeing what the Second Amendment, how the Second Amendment applies to them. And I've got to imagine that the majority of people who saw some of their communities go up in flames over the course of the summer, probably taking steps in order to think, well, maybe the cops aren't going to be there when I need them.
Yeah, that's such a. We talked a little bit last week about a certain type of paradox in the media sphere, but that seems like quite the paradox in the gun world to be thrust into whether you like it or not, into kind of this cultural division that's happening in the way that we see each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, you had the way that you, and I told you this the other day when we were talking, I feel like you have the best cover blurb of any magazine because I'm going to let you describe it. I'm not even going to attempt to. But you know, it's a guy wearing a shirt, and the cover blurb, the main cover blurb, as we call it in the biz, I guess, is on a guy's shirt. So you can just be like, he was just wearing that shirt.
That is his shirt. That's Maj Tour's branding, and so Maj.
Explain Maj Tour, for sure.
Yeah, so Maj Tour is an activist, Second Amendment activist within the black community, and he founded an organization called Black Guns Matter a few years back, and he really approaches the whole subject of firearms and firearms rights really from the perspective that in the U.S. anyway, the very first gun control laws that were passed in this country were aimed at freed slaves. And you know, the authorities at the time, they really did not want anybody from that community, the black community especially, being able to have the tools for self-defense, because you know, after the Civil War and the Jim Crow laws that ensued, you know, there was trying to keep blacks from voting, keeps blacks from owning guns and exercising the rights that they'd fought for.
Yeah, and it's so to you describe the cover. What does it say on the cover?
Well, Maj is wearing a shirt, and it says "All gun control is racist." Now, that's his opinion. I don't agree with that because I come from a different perspective. Like in the UK, the very first firearms legislation that was enacted in the 20th century was more geared towards the other. But so maybe you're going to approach it from that perspective. Like, the authorities don't want you having guns. And it's the first gun control act, and the really effective one in the UK was in 1920. And the establishment looked at what was happening in the rest of Europe, especially what was happening with their contemporaries over in Russia. And they did not want any of their authority being challenged, especially not by anybody who'd spent 4 years in the trenches of World War I, and was, you know, pretty well tooled up and had the training and capacity in order to effect change should they decide to go down that route.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before. You know, I understand the fear there, and the thing I would say with the Maj about all gun control is racist, and I'm sure at some level you agree. Like, you know, that's taking it a little far. It's a little absolutist for me. You know, just saying, man. Like, maybe it's not all. Maybe some of it isn't. Have you had conversations with him about this, or have you thought about that statement in and of itself and how to see from his point of view where he's coming from, and then connect the dots?
Yeah, we've been back and forth, and he's an interesting character, and you know, he's certainly no angel. And he, in the interview with him in this issue, he describes himself as a reformed scumbag, and you know, but interesting guy, and it's great to see his perspective and his take on things coming from the way, you know, where he grew up in Philly.
Yeah, and his perspective is what? I mean, what does he say? What when he gets into this statement? It's a nice way to sell T-shirts, but does he have? I mean, it's a nice looking shirt. I don't know where you get one, but
that reminds me, I really need to work out some sort of affiliate deal with him.
Yeah. We were talking about affiliate marketing. That's the perfect one. Linking on recoilweb.com. It's a great T-shirt, and it's a fine saying, but I think it mirrors some of the things in the media space that I don't like, in the public sphere that I don't like, that does tend towards absolutists. And clearly, it seems that Maj is trying to get people's attention here.
It is. It is, I think, purely for that reason that shirt is created. I mean, it grabs your attention, it slaps you aside the head, and it gets you thinking. Now, as you say, the absolutist points of view probably... I don't know. Look, Ben, I think we're both in agreement in that nuance has kind of been kicked out of the public debate, in the public sphere, and a lot of that has to do with, you know, media dividing people neatly into two camps so that we can yell at each other. And I think, as a tool for starting debate, I think it's a good thing to do. But as far as a philosophy, probably is a little bit too far down that road.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, there's some play. Black Guns Matter certainly is again it turns it into a sensitive discussion right away, and it gets attention on, I'm sure, what Maj wants to talk about. Now, you said in a post on your Instagram that he's been shadow banned. I just tried to search him to no avail. Is this true that he's been shadow banned from?
Yeah, I mean, if you go ahead and search for him in Instagram in that search bar at the top, you have to type in pretty much his whole name before anything pops up, and you'll see lots of other suggestions from Instagram before that happens. And so, I think that's indicative as to the stance that social media has with regards to Second Amendment and firearms rights in this country.
Yeah, I want to get into that too. I don't want to leave this too far off the table, and I have not read up or studied up on the history of gun control in terms of race and racism. So the reason I want to bring that up is so people can go and get RECOIL. It's on newsstands now, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it drops this week. But don't limit your reading to RECOIL. Please don't. There's a bunch of great titles out there. Negroes and the Gun is a great one to start off with. And it really goes into the history of gun control in the U.S.
That's good. Yeah, that's one thing in terms, especially this one. Like I said, I am not read up on this, but go do your reading. We certainly have had some critical conversations about race and race theory and how it's applied to even the outdoors. How sometimes the outdoors don't feel welcome to people of black and brown skin color and people of all minorities. Certainly, we see that reflected in the audience demographics and that listen to this show and many around our space.
Yeah,
so
I'm not going to be any sort of bleeding heart liberal about this, but really just looking at it from our perspective, from you, we kind of, for whatever reason, you and I kind of been put in this position in order to, as kind of spokespeople for either the hunting or the firearms communities, but we've done a really crap job of reaching out to people who don't look like us.
Yeah, we really have. And like I said, there's nothing that hasn't been politicized and kind of buried in the muck these days, wearing masks and all these other things. And this is one thing and we'll get into some of these other topics I want to get into, the NRA and gun control included in that. But it feels like, the ability to have the conversations we need to have in public about race and the outdoors and guns and all the things, all the sticky things that go with it, has been limited. We self-limit because it can't be controversial, but it's also been limited culturally because, we don't stand to benefit from something that delves into the real issues. We only stand to benefit from yelling at each other, as you said earlier. So I want to have more conversations like that. And I'm glad you're doing it over there. If not, just to highlight guys like Coley and Noir and Maj and guys that are aggressively arguing for their rights and what they believe. And they may not look like, folks in our industry traditionally look. And it's my opinion, I've said it many times on this program, that people are just trying to see themselves reflected in these communities.
I will give people a platform to talk about how they see the Second Amendment affecting them. Well, I think that's a good start wherever we can do it.
Yeah, well, and as you said earlier, I mean, and it's important if millions of people are buying guns that didn't have them before, and a lot of them obviously are in these demographics that we're talking about, they got to have a place where they feel like they can have those conversations because they're coming to it without all the dogma built in and all the things built in that you and I have from lots of years thinking about this and talking about it and working in it. Yeah, I mean, breaking down why people are buying guns is interesting. We've done it a little bit from looking at it from a demographic side, but just like, what's the motivations? What do you? I'm sure you talk to new gun owners all the time. What do you see as the top motivations right now?
Yeah, right now, I think it's, if you look at what people are buying, the majority of people are buying handguns, and the only reason you're going to need a handgun really is for self-protection, either yourself or your loved ones. And I think that's been the main driver. That's the main motivator for the 8-odd million people who've joined our ranks this year. And so I think one of the things that some of the programs that the NRA has had great success with, such as Project and the NSSF, such as Project Child Safe and the Eddie Eddie the Eagle program, and the Refuse to Be a Victim training programs as well that the NRA spearheaded. I think those are great ways to speak to new gun owners and get them started off on the right foot. Now, the downside of that is nobody can find frickin' ammo anymore. But other than
that always happens when there's new gun owners. The correlation is 100%. New gun owners, no ammo.
Yep.
We've built it that way.
That's another cool subject to dive into. You see some online debates within our own Second Amendment community and say, oh, why don't ammo manufacturers just scale up production? That's easy, isn't it? Well, no, it's huge capital expenditure to ramp up production for something that's probably going to be short-lived. And then, the banks are not going to finance this. There's reputational risk involved from some of the bigger financial companies. And so where does that leave us? Well, we're going to be struggling for a year or so because there's only 4 manufacturers of primers in the U.S. and 1 manufacturer of nitrocellulose.
Yeah, I mean, we can't act like this is the first time that we've had an ammo shortage in this way. If I have to yet again return to when I was a young journalist working at the NRA and covering this exact same kind of scenario. Now, there wasn't a global pandemic pushing it along, but exactly the same thing. We did articles. I wrote articles about primer shortages 10 years ago.
Yep.
And so this is cyclic for sure.
It's quadrennial, at least.
Absolutely. But I would say that, we know that buying intensified when COVID-19 came and when it reached American shores. We know that the biggest sales, we talked to Hornady, we saw their biggest sales ever in March. And they said it was a watershed moment for their company. Our mutual buddy Neil Davies told us that, our boy. And so there's a lot of things that happened, but I think the political climate also went into it. One thing that we should talk about is COVID. Why were people, Ian Harrison, why the hell were people buying guns during COVID? And what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I think people are seeing that, fed by the media, and the perception of this is the end of the world. Well, no, not really. But if it's the end of the world, then how do you protect yourself and your loved ones during that cataclysmic event? And I think that really just focused people's mind, not just on the pandemic. I think it also focused people's minds on, okay, well, what else could be out there? What other threats to my safety and well-being might there be? And if this isn't the one, then maybe there is something else that I should be thinking of and taking steps in order to address it.
Yeah, we interviewed Mark Oliva from NSSF, and he had a good quote. He said, "You can't discount the toilet paper effect that's going on."
So yeah, but now people have got enough stuff to wipe their asses with for at least a year and a case of ammunition. So
they need something. Set. Yeah, they need something to defend the toilet paper set. That's. To be fair to Mark, he also said people are concerned they aren't going to get what they need when they need it. And I told I don't want to press too hard upon this analogy because it could fall apart real quick. But I told my wife when she said I just bought 3 times the toilet paper back in March. I said, but that's why there's a toilet paper shortage, because every normal person is just like, I'll just buy a little bit more just because I don't know if I'm going to need it. But I'm going to want to have it. And if every person buys 3 times what they would normally have, then you're done. And I think that's similar with ammo.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I mean, there's that plus the whole bunch of new people who have joined the fold. Yep. And there is very much a fixed supply in this country. We can't ramp up beyond a certain level without spending a lot of money. And there's a long tail in order to bring a new facility into production. So, it is what it is. We have the supply that we have. And if you have an inelastic supply and an almost infinite demand, well, guess what's going to happen?
So what caliber should people be stockpiling right now, in your opinion?
Anything that I don't have, or that I don't have a need for.
Please
you guys can have all that.
List that out, caliber by caliber. Go out and buy all those.
Go buy 30-40 Krag and stuff.
Yeah, anything Ackley improved, 280 Ackley improved. That's what you need to be buying. Yeah, we have an article now over there at the meateater.com, and it addresses about ammo shortage. It addresses conspiracy theories. Do you have any conspiracy theories you want to cover here about ammo shortages?
I think there's just a major conspiracy of being unable to understand the laws of supply and demand. Basic economics. I don't think there's any ammunition being siphoned off into secret government warehouses, and I checked the inside of my ball cap, and it's surprisingly tinfoil free.
Yeah, I mean, the ammunition companies, people are saying, they're profit motivated, right? They're not going to be hoarding ammunition. Like, one of the conspiracy theories is that they're hoarding ammunition. You're like, they got to make money to keep it going.
If I'm a publicly traded company and I'm hoarding the material that is going to satisfy my shareholders, how long am I going to last as a CEO if I do that?
And those conspiracy theories seem to be the same every time this happens. every time the cycle comes back, it's like, oh, there they are hoarding the ammo again. And I certainly, like, you could bring on, somebody from that knows the manufacturing processes and how hard it is to get brass and how hard it is to get primers and how they select, like, what calibers are we going to go in on. Have you had any sense of that from your experience with the industry, of how they choose in times like this what calibers to focus on or how they differentiate?
Yeah, right now everybody's producing 9mm and 223 as fast as they can possibly do it, and they're running 3 shifts, and the machines are flat out, and so there is a huge demand for those 2 calibers because everybody wants to buy a Glock and an AR, and that's just the way it is, and it's going to be that way for quite some time as well. I mean, normally in the past we've had the opportunities to pick up some of that demand and satisfy some of that demand from imports, but because of COVID, the Russian ammunition plants shut down for 2 months completely over the course of the 2020, and so that left a huge gap in their supply for their own domestic markets, and then any of the surplus they would have sent us, well, that just went away.
Yeah, do you have any idea when we're going to come out of this? Probably in about 4 to 8 years.
Yeah, I'm banking on a year, and I'm banking on not being able to get the stuff that I want at the drop of a hat, just being able to go into a store and just pick up a case of ammunition. I'm pretty much banking on that not being available for a year.
What's going to happen, man, in the next 2 years? What are we looking at here as gun owners, as hunters, new, old, veteran, rookie? What's going to happen to us?
Well, as my platoon sergeant was wont to say, my balls are hairy, not crystal. So right now it's just prognostication, I guess. And I'm really hoping that happens is that the people, the people who are coming into power right now are going to look at the changing landscape with regards to the Second Amendment community and go, those 8.4 million people who just bought guns, if we piss them off before the midterms, then we could see a lot of losses amongst our Congress critters. So I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail and we won't see any primary legislation introduced for the next couple of years. However, that's making a big assumption. So
that is, yeah, surely. Is there any gun control legislation or any legislation out there around firearms that you feel like makes sense? Is there any restrictive measures?
No, if there's any gun, you think you actually said, is there any firearms legislation, changes to firearms legislation I would approve of? Yes, get rid of the Gun Control Act, make machine guns great again, and I would, I'm more of a libertarian mindset than a lot of my peers, and that old quote that I'd like to see my gay married neighbors defending their pot plantation with machine guns. I kind of want to see that.
Do you come from, I mean, if people went back and listened to our last podcast where you went through the whole thing, do you feel like that's born from that you've had to go down when you were in England? You're a member of the military, an active member of the military, and had to go turn in your firearms. Is that where this is coming from?
Yeah, pretty much. I've seen firsthand where all these, just sensible gun control steps, where they end up. They end up in confiscation. The ratchet only turns one way, mate.
Yeah. We've talked about the slippery slope fallacy in other ways here with anti-hunters and things like bear hunting with dogs, or, hound hunting in general, or bear hunting in New Jersey, or mountain lion hunting in California. We've talked about and examined this slippery slope. Is it a fallacy? Is it real? The more that I look at it and the other logical fallacies that exist, I think the slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy at all. It's very real. I think people just haven't thought it through. And one of the main reasons, and again, I'll say this wherever, I think the burden of proof in this case lies with the government, lies with anyone who wanted to restrict our rights. The burden of proof lies with them. I mean, if you look at what happened in Canada, the burden of proof that Justin Trudeau put out there to ban people from owning certain firearms was laughable at best. That I read the documents, and they banned the AR15.com from being purchased.
Yeah, you cannot buy an AR15.com.
No, you cannot. That's the first philosophy for me is
but you can deplatform it.
Yes, you can. Thanks, Canada. Get it together. But I think that the burden of proof is on the restrictor, and intensely so. But then I also, in this case, think that we have to find a way to have a conversation, because I think we're talking past each other in a lot of ways. One side's talking about banning and talking about stopping mass shootings, and one side's talking about protecting their family. We are talking completely past each other.
I agree, and again, it gets back to that division that's been created intentionally by the media in order to split the country into two camps, and who just shout at each other.
Do you think there's a way? Do you think there's a way we can talk to? Because certainly all those, I'm sure the 8.4 million new folks go across the political divides. They go from party to party, from perspective to perspective. There's no opportunity for something other than that. So their motivations are completely different, less ideological than yours or mine might be, or somebody that has the experience. And so there's a bit of the crossroads.
Yeah, I mean, they're buying guns for practical reasons. So they're not buying it just because it's a statement of philosophy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the other thing that I think of is when that burden of proof becomes on the restrictor, and when I look at the burden of proof that would come from somebody like Joe Biden or for folks in his party, if we look at it, let's say an assault weapons ban, I cringe when I hear that term. In and of itself is a complete logical fallacy. An assault weapons ban or an AR-15 ban, if the burden of proof was on the government to prove that those bans are going to save lives, okay, if they're going to save the lives of people, innocent people, whether that's a mass shooting or what, if they were really making laws to do that, they would first look to ban pistols, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at how often certain categories of firearms are used in mass shootings or used in crime in general, then the vast majority of homicides are done with handguns, firearms-related homicides anyway. If you look at how many rifles are used of all types in homicides in a given year, it's around about 700, and that figure's not really changed much in the past 10 years. The only thing that we've seen is a downward trend in the number of firearms-related homicides. And so if you do want to establish cause and effect, then with all these new firearms in circulation, then surely you would see a massive uptick in the number of shootings, and we're just not seeing that.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where I end up. If we're gonna say you have to, the burden of proof for this ban is on you. The folks like Joe Biden, who's been on this train, I had a memory pop up on my social media on Facebook of SHOT Show, I want to say 8 years ago, of a much younger and virile looking Joe Biden standing behind Barack Obama as they announced some executive orders around gun control. And we were standing in the halls of SHOT Show in Vegas, the largest gun show in the world. And so I remember the irony of that day. And now here we are. We're looking at something similar. No SHOT Show because we can't go to Vegas and gather. Yep. But it's a similar idea. So this in and of itself is cyclical, and that burden of proof seems to have not shifted in the way that it's being presented. So me as just as searching for an objective truth here, searching for objectivity within this polarized debate where you almost can't talk about it without getting people so fired up. If I'm searching for objectivity and I start with burden of proof for any sort of ban or restriction on my rights, I haven't seen it. And I haven't seen an approach that makes sense under those bounds. So that's where I stand.
Yep. I would agree with you on that one. And I'm glad you refreshed my memory regarding that SHOT Show, because I'd been day drinking with some SF buddies.
SHOT Show. You beautiful bastard, you. That was well before. We might have had IVs that year, but we didn't record any podcasts. That was before. All right. Well, I mean, again, we're going to jump into this, and I'm looking forward and talking to some individuals in the gun community that have a different view than you, and it may be a different view than me to have. And we talked about this. It would be nice to in the future when we can get face to face, have a debate style conversation where we can put these ideas directly against each other. But for now,
I'd be delighted to do that because they're wrong.
Yes. And I certainly try to remain a objective arbiter of those things, but I do have my own beliefs around the Second Amendment. No matter how I've been attacked as a green decoy or other things across the time, I've been very consistent about my belief in the Second Amendment and my belief in defending my family and the things we just discussed. So, but we're gonna try that, and we're gonna have those ideas and present those too, and let those folks have their time to speak about this. But at some point in the future, I really do want to get together and just hash this stuff out. And there's no one better than you. I mean, like I said before, you've devoted your life to the firearms community. The reason you're in this country is because of the freedoms that we have around gun ownership and the ability to defend ourselves and go shoot around a 3-gun if you're feeling stressed out and you need a nice release and want to go have some competition. So there's a lot that goes into that, but we'll continue to look at this because, this podcast, we're talking about new hunters a lot this year, and this is not something that can be glossed over in those terms. It just is not, in my opinion. So, to close it out, we can close it out with a lighthearted topic. Something lighthearted. What are you looking forward to in 2021? Interview me. I don't give a shit.
All right. Yeah. What are you looking forward to, Ben? I mean, you got any good hunts coming up?
I do. I got a lot. My hunt to New Zealand, we had a first light contest where like somebody could win a hunt with me. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you could go to New Zealand, which is like the primary.
Maybe they hate their liver.
Yeah. Maybe they want somebody to talk to them about ethics and search for truth on the plane ride over for 12 hours. Who knows?
Oh, God,
that would be awful. Even for me, it would be awful, and I can't help myself. I'd be like, my God, this guy's annoying. And anyway, I'm looking forward to turkey season, man. Like, I don't know you to be a big turkey hunter. Do you turkey hunt?
Oh, I like turkey hunting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's
a lot of fun. Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to turkey hunting. I'm going to take our engineer Phil out turkey hunting for his first hunt ever this year. But I've also have a lot of goals around killing turks. So I'm looking. Each year I have a goal to get 10 turkeys to fill the freezer. I feel like 10 turkeys is enough to feed my family what the white meat they desire over a year's term. I've never gotten to 10. I've only ever gotten, I think 7 is the highest I've gotten to. But I continue to put that calculus together in my mind about this time every year when there's no hunting left to do. And it's just like ice fishing and thinking about turkeys is basically this time of year for me.
I've got coyote hunting right now.
Ooh. There's a lot of coyotes around your place?
Yeah, and we have, I've got chickens and livestock, so it's good to put a dent in the numbers. And I know somebody's going to come up and say, oh, if you shoot them, then they'll just reproduce more and yada. Well, guess what? If you shoot the ones that are eating your chickens, they don't eat your chickens anymore.
So no, I mean, I'm still, dude, I will say this openly. Montana, I have the curse of the Montana tag in my life. Every time I leave the state of Montana, I fill my tag immediately. But I've been a 2-year resident of Montana, and Montana is kicking my ass to an embarrassing level. And so anybody out there who wants to take some swings at my ability as a hunter, it's wide open, baby. You're Mike Tyson, and I guess I'm not Buster Douglas. Maybe I'm Evander Holyfield. I'm wide open for criticism because I'm struggling.
You'd lose an ear on that one.
Yeah, easy. So yeah, I'm struggling there. But this year, I'm doubling down on Montana. I might not leave Montana just because I need to.
You going after elk?
Yeah, I'll have elk and deer. Bear has been something that has eluded me, so I'll do a lot of spring black bear hunting. Turkeys, especially in the state of Montana, have eluded me. And then,
so what you're saying is that there's actually no game in Montana.
Yeah, there's nothing here. I haven't.
There's nothing there. It's a wasteland.
Yeah, and I think maybe like the force, the earth turns faster here, and bullets, maybe get pulled to the left or right in some circumstances. I don't understand. Arrows don't fall where they're supposed to. But as soon as you go into Wyoming, them suckers hit good. So South Dakota, perfect. So I go to Montana. But anyway, you're always doing something crazy. I remember you were skydiving sometime in Alaska. You were going to jump out of a plane and go hunting or something. You're always doing something crazy.
Yeah, that's still on the cards for this year.
Explain that. Yeah, explain this.
Yeah, so we you should probably talk to Kalen Wojcik from Modern Day Sniper, because he's the one who's kind of put this whole crazy idea together. But yeah, the whole idea is to go into an area that's pretty remote and then skydive in, because why not?
All right, that's it, folks. We'll see you next time. Be a great way to end it. We're talking about doing a lot of Costanzaing here. We're just like, get your joke and get out of the podcast. Podcasts always go too long, too. Well, anything else? Anything else you want to tell the people, the Hunting Collective audience here? I mean, you're a recurring guest now, which means you're going to have to come back every time something.
Is that like a recurring nightmare?
It's very similar. It's very similar.
I don't know how to follow that up. I really don't.
Well, that means we're all done. Thank you again. And everybody should go back and listen to our first interview with Iain that goes through your story of how you came to the United States. Oh, America. It's as informative to this conversation around gun control and hunting and our communities at large as it gets, because it's real, and it's the guy you now know and I know very well, and happened to him. So could happen to us. So we'll leave it there. Iain, thank you very much. I will see you for our skydive hunt.
Pleasure, Ben. Look forward to it.
All right, brother.
Cheers, mate.
That's it. That's all. Another episode in the books. Thank you to Iain Harrison. Thank you to Phil, the engineer. And another thank you to everybody that writes into thc@themeateater.com. We absolutely, positively appreciate you and everybody that listens to this program. And again, let me reiterate, grapefruits over cinnamon rolls. And I also want to reiterate, hate listening is encouraged on the Hunting Collective. If you hate us, tell your friends. And they should listen too. And if they're also in an ideological bubble and they just need something to get angry at, we'll do that for you, because we're really about community. And there's room in the cult for everyone from all shapes and sizes. So please hate listen to the Hunting Collective. Phil, we got a lot of things happening that we're going to get to next week. A lot of things. Now you've challenged me to come up with a good idea for a contest for making the next THC theme song. The song that you hear every week.
Yeah.
With Kayla Ray. So we're going to get with Kayla and we're going to figure something out. We'll probably even have her on next week, talk a little bit about it. We'll figure that out for you. The other thing we're figuring out, talking to my friends at the NWTF, that's the National Wild Turkey Federation, if we don't know about that, is they're struggling right now, man. Conservation groups are struggling. Conservation groups can't have banquets. I don't know if everyone listening to this knows how most traditional conservation groups make money, but they have banquets where they sign up members, they auction off prizes that, like, in regional chapters and in a broad base. Wild Sheep Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, all these things that support the species and habitat that we need and love. They're struggling because they're having to have Zoom conferences instead of shows. I mean, normally we would be at SHOT Show, we would be at Sheep Show, we would be in Vegas and Reno and seeing all our good friends in those places, but we're not this year. So those conservation orgs are struggling. And so, Phil, what we're going to do, and you guys can help us with this too, is we're going to figure out a way to make Phil's first hunt a way to raise some cash for the National Wild Turkey Federation, NWTF. We're going to find a way. They have recently laid off a bunch of people, and talking to their folks the other day, they're saying, man, we don't know what we're going to do if another banquet season goes bust, if we can't gather for another year. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what that looks like for our organization. And so it's inspired me to figure out a way to use Phil's first hunt and make some cash and just give it all, every single cent of it, to the National Wild Turkey Federation. Maybe we save a program that's important to Habitat. Maybe we get somebody's job back. There's a lot of things we can do if we all band together and help them out. So more details to come next week on that. And I'm hoping, Phil, a little tip of the cap, I'm hoping that it will involve Cameo. And that you and I will be going to work making videos for cash, like a couple of street performers in the corner. Maybe one of those guys that spins around a sign, for discount furniture. That's what we'll be like.
Okay, that'll be you. I'll be like your little monkey that's hitting the cymbals.
Cymbals, yes, perfect. Okay. Thank you. That's what I was going to say that, but
or playing an accordion. It's your pick. I can.
Can you play the accordion?
No, but I can do cymbals.
All right, I could play the recorder. We can have one hell of a band.
Sure.
All right. Well, next week, big week. We'll talk more with Kayla Ray. We're going to figure out what we're going to do for the NWTF. Please write in with your ideas. I'll be honest, it hit me pretty hard when I heard about this from the NWTF. So let's not take anything for granted. If you can spare $1, we're going to find a way to make that happen for you. And we'll all band together if we can. We will see you next week on The Hunting Collective. Say bye, Phil.
Goodbye.
Too long, 'cause I can't go a week without doing wrong. Oh, without doing wrong. Without doing wrong. Oh, without doing wrong. Drinking in heaven.
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.